Ooh, it's me. I'm back again with another one. I will be reacting to top 10 dark things that happened during camping. Like I said, hey, this might be the last video of the night because it's all time for me to go to sleep. Got work tomorrow. And hey, I see you got an ad. If these have ads, I'm not shaking them up. No cap, I'll be ready with you 100%. But if you like, if you enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, share, hey, and let's get into it.
Camping can be a very beautiful experience that really gives you space from the hustle and bustle of our daily world, but sometimes being in an isolated area can be absolute nightmare fuel. From strange sounds to strange findings to just some really strange people. On today's list, I will be covering 10 dark things that happened during camping. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the middle of nowhere. This story starts off when this person was really young and on a camping trip with their family. They went to bed around 10 p.m. one night in their sleeping bag inside of the tent, and both their older brother and their mom were also there, and they were also heading to bed at the same time. This is all pretty normal camping stuff so far, but this is when things get a little weird. After falling asleep, the next thing this person remembers is waking up in the middle of the night, but they weren't in the tent anymore, and now they were suddenly somewhere in the middle of the woods, but they were still in the sleeping bag that they fell asleep in. Obviously, this would be absolutely terrifying to anyone, especially a child, so they start yelling for their mom, who then began yelling back, and of course, both of them were pretty panicked. Luckily, they weren't too far from each other, so the mom quickly found them, and everyone was totally safe and sound. But to this day, they still don't know how they ended up all the way out there in the middle of the woods, still inside their sleeping bag. In our number 9 spot today, we have the killer dog. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this video so far, because it really helps us out. This story starts off with the storyteller hiking a trail with a few others. The group was descending the trail and they came across a family who had a dog with them. This family was standing more off to the side of the trail and they weren't moving, so our storyteller's group just kept descending down and walked past them. As they were passing, they realized that this family is all standing in a circle holding hands and the dog is in the middle of them. The first thought was that they were most likely praying, which is of course totally fine, but when they heard exactly what they were praying for, things got quite a bit more creepy. As they were walking past, they hear the dad of the family say, "Lord, please do not let this dog kill again." Excuse me? I have absolutely no idea what is going on with that dog, but I definitely wouldn't have wanted to be near when I heard the family say that. Needless to say, that group chose to hike some other trails on their camping trips from that point on. In our number 8 spot today, we have the masked stranger. Sometimes we see things, and while nothing overtly terrible happens, we just know that something very suspicious is going on. That is what happened on this person's camping trip at a site in Colorado. This person was just having an average camping day when a strange man walked out of the wooded area holding a very large knife, and for some reason he was also wearing a beekeeper hood. It was close to dusk at this point and he just walked through the camping area and then just headed back into the wooded area on the other side. Where was he going? Why did he have a knife? Why did he have a hood? I have a lot of questions for this man because this is certainly not normal camping behavior. If anyone out there has any idea of what this guy could have been doing, please let me know because I feel like I am going to have nightmares about this situation now. In our number 7 spot today, we have help. This story takes place on a camping trip at 11 p.m. when everyone was sleeping. This is of course in the forest, so it is very, very dark and you definitely would need a flashlight to see what's going on around you. This is a family camping trip, so there's a few people there, including one kid who's about 3 years old at the time. Since he's only 3, he can't speak in full sentences yet, but he obviously knows words. Anyway, so it's 11 at night, everyone's asleep, and then this 3-year-old starts crying, which wakes everyone up. The kid's dad, of course, asks him what's wrong, and the 3-year-old just keeps repeating, "Help, guy come." No one knows what this means, and the kid is obviously really, really frightened, which of course absolutely freaks everyone else out. No one slept for the rest of the night because of course they were terrified of whatever this child may have seen. I am hoping that this was just a bad dream that the kid had and that there was never any strange man. In our number 6 spot today, we have the tent roof. This story story starts off with a couple who took a camping trip when they were just 19 years old. The couple was at a camping site in northern Scotland and they were in their tent. It was just before bed, so it was of course dark out, and one of them was reading a book by the light of a flashlight. Nothing too crazy, but then all of a sudden the top of the tent starts coming down towards them. The roof was going down so far that they had to lay down in order for it to not touch them. As they're laying there, this is when one of them realizes that they can clearly see 10 fingertips right in front of their face pushing down the top of the tent. Who is doing this and why? I honestly have no idea. Maybe they were trying to see if someone was in the tent, but then that leads me to the question of why would they want to know? Unfortunately, we'll probably never know for sure. In our number 5 spot today, we have Florida camping. This camping story comes from Florida, and man, this one grosses me out. This person was winding down from a beautiful day in the wilderness and was ready for bed, but as soon as it got dark, suddenly their tent was absolutely covered in hundreds of rats. I'm honestly stressed out just thinking about this. They explained that these rats were absolutely everywhere. They were climbing up the ropes and were even on top of the tent. This camper got out of the tent and started a fire. They stayed up all night because, of course, how could you possibly sleep after that? The rats left and this person felt like they had all gone, and hopefully all the rats just moved to another spot. So this person decided to risk it and stay another night, which I personally think is insane. Of course, once it got dark again, the rats returned, and it seemed like there were even more this time. The camper did the same thing as the night before and got the fire started, which again made all of the rats leave, thankfully. When morning hit, they packed up their camping equipment because it was most definitely time to head to another spot. Has anyone else experienced this kind of a thing? I honestly probably would have packed up and left immediately if I ever had to go through that. In our number 4 spot today, we have the dawn hike. This story is one that I absolutely could not imagine. One day, 2 guys were hiking at dawn on one of their camping trips. I feel like dawn would be such a nice time to go hiking because you can get the most beautiful sunrise view. Anyway, the 2 were walking along the path when one of them hears a zing right by their ear. They said at first they thought it was like a bird chirp or something, but then a second later, right in front of them, they hear and see a tree pop and crack. This is when they both realize at the same time that they've just been shot at. And considering how close all of the sounds were, they were very close to actually being hit. They book it out of there and of course head to tell a park ranger, which is the best thing to do in that situation. The ranger of course quickly went to investigate, and they found a man who was hunting illegally. Thank goodness no one got hurt and that they were able to stop this man before anything worse happened. I'm not sure if he thought those 2 guys were animals or something, or if he was trying to shoot at something else, but this whole situation could have been very, very bad. In our number 3 spot today, we have group camp. This story starts off with a group of friends all on a camping trip together, which I have to say really does sound like a very fun time. One night on this trip, they were all sitting around the fire hanging out when something strange began to happen. Someone or something began throwing rocks at them in their tent. They all looked around and searched a bit to try and find out where the rocks were coming from, but it was so dark they couldn't really see anything. They figured that maybe it was just some people from another site close by who were trying to play some sort of freaky prank or something like that. A few hours later, after this weird rock incident, they heard an absolutely piercing scream coming from the woods. Could these 2 things be related? Who knows for sure, but it is definitely safe to say that the friends didn't really sleep much for the rest of the night. In our number 2 spot today, we have this old crime scene. This story starts off with this person's annual trip to see their dad. Every summer, the pair would take a trip to go camping in the mountains, but one year they had an experience they'll never forget. They were hiking down a slope when they saw a really old rifle sticking out from a tree. This is obviously unusual, so they got closer to check it out, and they realized that it had obviously been there for quite some time as the tree had grown around the rifle. As they got even closer, they noticed a small cave, which they decided to go into. This is when they found a few personal items like cans of unopened food, a rusted pot, and an old wool blanket. You know, things that made it seem like at some point someone was living inside of this cave. The dad went over to the blanket and unrolled unrolled it, and this is when it revealed a shirt with holes and blood stains that was all crumpled up inside of this blanket. Did these two stumble upon some super old crime scene? They unfortunately aren't exactly sure what happened here, but it is all very, very suspicious. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the whistling. This very eerie story comes from a couple, and it takes place at a pretty empty campsite that was located in California. The pair set up their camp, made some food for dinner, and headed to bed one night, but in the middle of their sleep, they were woken up by a sound. This sound was actually the sound of a person whistling in the tune of "When the Saints Come Marching In." The pair laid frozen in fear, just hoping that if they remained silent, this person would just carry on with their business, but things took an even creepier turn. The whistling turned into chanting, and this person was saying, "When you sleep here, you disrespect me, and when you disrespect me, you disrespect the US Marines." I have quite literally no idea what they mean by that, but this is obviously just a bad situation to be in. The couple quietly snuck out of the tent and got into their truck, where they drove to the nearest motel in the closest town. In the morning, they headed back to the campsite so that they could collect their belongings that they had to abandon. When they got there was another family there who had stayed the night there as well. This family explained to them that the singing and chanting continued for another 2 to 3 hours after they had escaped in the truck. I can't believe that this family stuck it through the night, because I absolutely would have noped out of there as quickly as I possibly could. Who knows what that whistling guy was up to, but he definitely knows how to freak people out. Alright guys, I've been your host, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you next time. Bye!
Okay, if you enjoyed that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Note to self, note to y'all. If you want to stay alive, you want to stay cool, calm, don't go camera. It's me, and Progress. I will have another video, but it's time to go ahead hit the sheets like they did in that cave. I'll catch y'all another time.